After 5 years of marriage talks with Lu Zhengge, the heir apparent of Marquis Amping, I thought we would finally get married, until our wedding day. For that delicate cousin of his, he made my bridal sedan the joke of the whole capital city. They don't know. I never hold a grudge. If there is a grudge, I like to get my revenge on the spot. On the day of the grand wedding, the auspicious time has arrived. I was wearing a 30-jin heavy phoenix coronet, sitting upright in my boudoir, listening to the deafening festive music and the clamor of voices outside. All the prominent figures in the capital have come, waiting to watch this grand marriage alliance between the Shangshu mansion and the Marquis Amping mansion. But what I got wasn't the groom, Lu Zhengge, but a deafening uproar. Me personal head maid, Wang Kui, came scrambling and crawling in, her face as white as a sheet. "Miss, something's wrong. The groom, he is dead." I raised an eyebrow, my tone calm. "That is not it, miss." Wan Kui was on the verge of tears. He ran off with that female cousin from the Su family, Su Wanning, Lu Zhengge's White Lotus cousin, the one raised in the Marquis's mansion who would topple over at a puff of wind. Me dad, Shi Yuan, the current Minister of Revenue, rushed in with a livid face, followed by my mother who was already a sobbing mess. "Ji Yuan." My dad's voice was trembling. "That little bastard from the Lu family. I stood up, the wedding dress on me so magnificent. It was like a joke. "Dad, don't get angry." I supported him. "Daughter wants to go see for herself." Outside the gates of the ministry's mansion, it was already a complete mess. The wedding procession was blocked at the street entrance. The festive red silk drooped dejectedly. And at the very front of the procession, Lu Zhengge, who was supposed to be spiritedly coming to marry me, was now holding a trembling woman. Su Wanning. She was wearing a plain white mourning dress, completely out of place with the surrounding festive atmosphere. Her small face was tear-streaked, as if she had suffered immense grievances. She leaned in Lu Zhengge's arms, coughing so violently it was earth-shattering, as if she would stop breathing any second. "Zhengge," her voice was as faint as a mosquito's buzz. Wanning didn't mean to. I just wanted to see you in your wedding attire one more time." Cough, cough. Lu Zhengge's eyes were full of heartache. His voice was gentler than I had ever heard. "Don't say it. I understand. I'll take you back to the mansion to see a doctor first." The surrounding guests pointed and whispered, their voices drilling into my ears like flies. What kind of behavior is this? On the auspicious wedding day, the groom is holding another woman. Minister Shi's face has turned green. This Miss Su really knows how to pick her timing. Not sick early, not sick late, but precisely at this moment. I pushed through the crowd and walked step by step towards them. The beads on my phoenix coronet clinked, making a crisp and cold sound. When Lu Zhengge saw me, a hint of panic and guilt flashed across his face. "Jiyuan, let me explain." "Wan Ningxi." "What do I need you to explain?" I interrupted him, my gaze bypassing him to land on the pretentious woman in his arms. "Explain why on our wedding day, you were hugging and cuddling with another woman in the street, disgracing the reputation of my Shia family." Su Wanning peeked out from his arms and looked at me timidly. "Sister Zhiyuan, don't blame Brother Zhengge. It is all my fault. I'll leave right now." As she spoke, she struggled to get down, but her legs gave way and she happened to fall back into Lu Zhengge's arms, while still trying very hard to stand up from the ground. During this, she glanced back at Lu Zhengge, her pure and innocent face covered in tears. "What kind of scheming white lotus is this?" I laughed out of anger. Before I could even act up, a graceful and luxurious-looking woman squeezed her way over. Marquise Amping, my future mother-in-law. She didn't even glance at me, walked straight to Lu Zhengge's side, and touched Su Wanning's forehead, her face full of anxiety. "Oh my Wanning, how did you get so sick? Quick, Zhengge, hurry and take her back to the manor, and call the imperial physician." She kept saying, "My Wanning," one after another, calling her more affectionately than her own daughter. Lu Zhengge, as if granted a great pardon, immediately picked up Su Wanning and was about to leave. "Stop," I shouted sternly. He stopped in his tracks and turned back impatiently. Ji Zhuan, what on earth do you want? Wan Ning is about to die. A human life, is it really less important than your pride? I laughed. I laughed so hard tears almost came out. Lu Zhengzhi, today is our wedding day, a marriage bestowed by the emperor himself. If you leave now holding this woman, where does that leave my and my Xia family's pride? And where does that leave the emperor's pride? Lady Amping finally deigned to look at me properly, but her eyes were full of contempt and disdain. Miss Xi, you are being far too ungenerous. Wan Ning grew up in our family, and has a weak constitution. It is only right for Zhengzhi to take care of her. If the auspicious time is missed, we can just hold the ceremony another day. Being so nitpicky, how are you supposed to be the matriarch of my Marquis Amping's residence in the future? What a hold it another day. What a nitpicky. I've now completely seen this family's true colors in their eyes. I, the officially wedded consort of the heir apparent, am less important than a cousin of unknown origins. I took a deep breath, suppressed the turmoil in my heart, and even managed a slight smile. The Marchioness is right. A human life is at stake, which is of course the most important thing. I paused, glanced around at the gossiping guests. My voice wasn't loud, but it was clear enough for everyone to hear. Since the heir apparent and Miss Su share such deep affection and are inseparable, then I, Xie Zhuoyun, shouldn't be the one to play the villain. I reached out and took off the phoenix crown on my head, that heavy thing symbolizing both glory and shackles. I held it in my own hands. Then, in front of everyone, facing Lu Zhengge's direction, I slowly let go. Clang. The gold-inlaid and jade-encrusted phoenix crown smashed onto the stone slabs, making a loud crash. A few oriental pearls rolled off, just like my shattered heart. The entire place fell dead silent. Everyone was stunned by this crazy thing I did. I looked at the dumbfounded Lu Zheng, and Su Wanning in his arms who had forgotten to cough, and said word by word, the status of the Marquis of Amping's household. I, Xi Zhuan, am not worthy of aspiring to. This marriage, my Xi family, is calling it off. Rebellion! This is utter rebellion. Back at our manor, my mother plopped down on a chair, clutching her chest, trembling all over with anger. Zhiyuan, how could you? How could you do such a thing in public, calling off the engagement? You are a girl. Don't you want your reputation anymore? Although my dad didn't say anything, his tightly knitted brows and ashen face also showed the storm inside him. I calmly took off the intricate wedding gown and changed into a set of plain, simple, everyday clothes. Mom, I poured her a cup of tea and handed it to her. My reputation was already gone the moment. Lu Zhengge turned around with Su Wanning in his arms. If we lose our reputation, we can find a way to fix it. But you smashed the phoenix coronet. That is slapping the royal family in the face. My mother was so anxious she started crying. Slapping the royal family in the face is exactly what I am doing. My words were shocking, and both my parents were stunned. I walked up to my father and knelt down. Father, your daughter is unfilial, and has brought shame to you and the Xia family today, but I will never regret it. My father pointed at me, speechless for a long time. Father, think about it. Who was at fault in today's incident? I looked up, my eyes shining, and said, the fault lies with Lu Zhengzhi for being fickle, and with the Marquis of Amping's mansion for their poor upbringing of their son, and for being too overbearing. But if we endure this, what will people say? I paused and let out a cold laugh. They will only say that Xi Zhuan is weak and easily bullied, that the Xi family is power-hungry, and that we can endure such a humiliating disgrace just to climb into the Marquis's mansion. By then, it won't be the Marquis of Amping's mansion that loses face, but our Xi family. My father's expression changed, from anger to deep thought. I continued, my smashing the phoenix coronet and breaking off this engagement today may seem impulsive, but in reality, it is throwing the hot potato back at them. Now, the Marquis of Amping's mansion is the one who should be worried. How will they account for this to the entire capital, and how will they account for this to the emperor? But what about the emperor? My mother was still worried. The marriage decreed by the emperor is a blessing, but the Lu family doesn't know what is good for them. Repudiating the marriage in public is a show of contempt for the emperor's grace. This fall of mine elevated the conflict from a private matter between our two families to an issue of the royal family's honor. Dad, do you think the emperor will blame us, the victims, for a subject who shows him contempt? My dad suddenly slapped his thigh. You are right, we're the victims. Having been through the ups and downs of officialdom for years, he instantly understood the crux of the matter. Jiyuan, you've grown up. He helped me up, his eyes filled with unprecedented admiration and gravity. Dad will see this through with you. I'd like to see just how the Marquis Zamping's manor plans to get out of this. Sure enough, in less than an hour, people from the Marquis Zamping's manor arrived. The one who came wasn't the Marquis to apologize, but the aggressive Marquis. In our living room, she unleashed a torrent of accusations at my dad. Minister Shi, is this how you taught your daughter? Ji Yuan is so reckless, throwing the phoenix crown down in public. This is going to doom both of our families. My dad sat in the host's seat, leisurely sipping his tea, not even batting an eye. Marquise, you are mistaken. My daughter only did what she had to do. On the other hand, your manor's heir abandoned his bride on their wedding day to elope with another woman. How do you explain that? That was a desperate measure for a desperate situation. Wan Ning was about to die. Oh, I walked out from behind the screen and chuckled softly. Miss Siu is dying. How did I hear that after the heir apparent carried her back to the manor? She just drank a bowl of calming soup and went to the garden to admire the flowers. The Marchioness's face turned pale, then livid. This news, of course. I had Wan Kui pay for it from the mouths of the servants in the Marquise's manor. You are viciously slandering me. Whether I am baselessly slandering or not, Lady Who knows in her heart. I walked up to her, my gaze icy. Today I will make things clear. My marriage with Lu Zhengzhen's here. Within 3 days, I want the house of Marquis Zamping to prepare lavish gifts, an 8-bearer, palanquin, with gongs and drums, to return my Shi family's dowry untouched, and to announce to the whole city that it is Lu Zhengzhen, who is of poor character, unworthy of the legitimate daughter of the Xia family, and is voluntarily withdrawing from the marriage. Otherwise, or what? The Marchioness raised her eyebrows, a look of disdain on her face. Do you think you can fly to heaven? I don't want to fly to heaven, I said, looking at her, word by word. I just want to make the Marquis Zamping's residence unable to hold its head up in the capital ever again. The Marchioness was angered away by me for the next 2 days. The wind in the capital was strange. Some people cursed the Lu family for being despicable, while others were spreading rumors that I was arrogant and domineering, jealous and mean, forcing my frail cousin to vomit blood on the spot, and that I also defied imperial grace and threw the phoenix crown to the ground. It is obvious that the Marquise's wife is behind this. She wants to muddy the waters and sling mud at me. My mother was as anxious as a cat on a hot tin roof, but I wasn't flustered at all. Wan Kui, pack up those most luxurious sets of hair ornaments and that bolt of brocade that were prepared for me in our storeroom. Miss, what are you planning to do? Send gifts. I smiled slightly. Go give the wife of Vice Minister Wang of the Ministry of Personnel, the wife of General Zhou, the commander of the Imperial Guard, and also Her Highness, the eldest princess, each a share. These people are all famous broadcast stations in the capital city. The gatherings of wives and young ladies in their homes can decide the direction of public opinion for the entire upper-class society of the capital city. Wang Kui went out with the gift box and returned in less than 2 hours, her face full of joy. Miss, you are truly incredible. The madams all accepted the gifts, and they even pulled this servant aside, asking all sorts of questions. This servant just followed your instructions, said nothing, just cried, and said that you, miss, have had no appetite for food or tea these past few days, washing your face with tears every day, that the dowry was all prepared. But the man is gone, and it breaks our hearts to see. Then what did they say? They all said, The way the Marquise's manner handled this was so shabby, and told our young miss to please look on the bright side, and not ruin her health for that. I nodded in satisfaction. Showing weakness is always the best way to win sympathy. I just want to let everyone see that I, Xie Zhuan, am the most innocent and most pitiful victim. On the third day, the agreed-upon deadline, Lu Zhengge actually brought Su Wanning and came to visit in person. I sat in the living room, watching that scumbag couple walk in side by side, and I almost threw up. Lu Zhengge was a bit thinner, with faint dark circles under his eyes. The look he gave me was very complicated, with guilt, resentment, and a trace of some emotion I couldn't understand. Su Wanning, as always, was in a simple white dress, looking as delicate as a willow in the wind. Upon seeing me, the rims of her eyes immediately turned red. Fei Sister Zhuan. Fei, the moment she spoke, she was about to kneel. I lifted a hand, and the maid immediately stopped her. Fei Masu's constitution is delicate. You'd better not perform such a grand courtesy. If you happen to get bumped or bruised, His Highness the heir apparent would be heartbroken. Fei, I said with a fake smile. Su Wanning's face paled, and she stood there awkwardly. Lu Zhengge took a step forward, his voice hoarse. Jiyuan, I've come to Fei to deliver the dowry and the annulment papers. Fei, I cut him off directly. He choked, his expression turning awkward. Li Xuan, I know I was in the wrong that day, but our 5 years of affection, are you really going to write it all off, just because of this small misunderstanding? Fei, 5 years of affection? Fei, it was as if I'd heard the biggest joke in the world. Fei, Lu Zhengge, you want to talk to me about affection? When you abandoned me at our wedding for another woman, making me and my family the laughingstock of the entire capital, why didn't you talk to me about affection then? Fei, isn't that Wanning? She was really at her limit at the time. Enough. I slammed the table, the teacups rattling. Lu Zhengge, cut the crap. I am sick of it. Seeing this, Su Wanning started her act again. Sister Zhiyuan, don't blame Brother Zhengge. It is all my fault. I came today to explain clearly. He and I, we're just innocent. You are what? I asked, watching her with cold eyes. Deep sibling affection or an uncontrollable passion? Su Wanning, let me ask you. I stared at her aggressively. When Lu Zhengge said he was going to marry me, to spend his life with me, where were you? When he and I were preparing for the wedding, and I was full of joy waiting to be married. Where were you then? You didn't say anything sooner, you didn't say anything later, but you just had to, on my wedding day, run out making a life or death scene to take one last look at him. What, do you think I, Xie Zhiyuan, am a pushover, or do you think all the men in the world should revolve around you? I didn't. I really just wanted to bless you guys. Her tears rolled down like a broken string of pearls. I took a step forward, closing in on her, and said in her ear in a voice that only the 3 of us could hear. A blessing looks to me like you are here for a funeral. Huh. Too bad it wasn't me who died, but don't you worry, someone's gonna be in for it soon. Su Wanning's body jolted, and she looked at me in terror. I straightened up, no longer looking at her, and only faced Lu Zhengge. My patience is limited. The dowry, the documents, not a single thing can be missing. Otherwise, it won't be me talking to you, but my father, who will go talk to your Marquis and the Emperor. Lu Zhengge's expression finally changed. He seemed not to have expected that I, who had always been so gentle, would become so aggressive. He clenched his fists and said through gritted teeth, Ji Yuan, do you have to be so ruthless? I smiled. You were the one who was ruthless first. In the end, Lu Zhengge failed to give me the annulment papers. After they left, my father asked me worriedly, Zhu Yuan, if they refuse to give them, are we really going to file an imperial complaint? Dad, why use an ox cleaver to kill a chicken? I picked up the cold tea and took a sip. Filing an imperial complaint is the last resort. Before that, I am going to make the Marquis of Amping's residents wash their own necks and deliver them to our blades. The next day, I did something that shook the entire capital. I divided my priceless dowry into 3 parts. One part, in the name of my Shi family, was donated to the refugee camps in the capital's suburbs for disaster relief. As soon as the news got out, the entire capital was praising my Shi family for their worldly compassion and unparalleled benevolence. One portion I sent into the palace, presenting it to Her Majesty, the Empress, and a few of the high-ranking concubines. The reason was, this humble daughter is not blessed enough to enjoy it, and wishes for it to adorn your ladyship's visages, praying for the country's peace and the people's well-being. The Empress was greatly pleased, bestowed many gifts, and even sent someone to relay a message for me to rest and recuperate well, for justice will prevail in the end. With this, the imperial family's stance was self-evident. And the last portion was also the most ruthless one. I converted all the field deeds, land deeds, and shop contracts in my dowry into ready silver, and then started a crazy busyness war. The biggest businesses of the Marquis Samping Manor were several grain shops and cloth shops in the capital. I had the accountant go and open new shops right across from all of their shops. Their rice sold for 10 wena jin, so I sold mine for 8. Their cloth sold for 1 tael of silver a bolt, so I sold mine for 8 chien. Not only that, I also spread the word that anyone whose family is having a joyous occasion, a funeral, or is poor and destitute, can come to my Shia family's shops to receive a portion of grain for free. For a time, my Shia family's shops were bustling with people, while the shops of the Marquis Amping's residents were deserted, and the shopkeepers and the assistants' faces were more bitter than bitter melons. In just 10 short days, the Marquis Amping's residents suffered huge losses, almost to the point of a crippling blow. The old Marquis was so angry he took to his bed. The Marquise came 3 times to scold me, but my dad sent her back each time. That night, the moon was dark and the wind was high. Lu Zhengge climbed over the wall into my yard. He was dressed all in black, his eye sockets sunken, and his eyes bloodshot, like a beast driven to the brink. Ijijuan, he squeezed my name from between his teeth. What on earth are you trying to do? You are going to destroy our Lu family. I was admiring the moon on the veranda, and when I heard that, I didn't even bother to turn my head. Scared now, back when you ruined my Shi family's reputation, why didn't you think of the consequences? That is different. He rushed in front of me, grabbed my shoulders, and shook them hard. That was just about face. Now you are trying to take our whole family's lives. I was getting a bit dizzy from his shaking, and coldly flung his hands away. Lives Lu Zhengge, do you think I would care about your lives? I looked at him and laughed, an incredibly desolate laugh. What do you think I've been doing this past half a month? I was thinking, where exactly did I go wrong to make you rather betray me just to protect that woman? Later, I figured it out. I wasn't wrong. It is you who is wrong. It is your Amping Marquis Manor, rotten to the core. You are talking nonsense. I am talking nonsense. I took a step forward, staring intently into his eyes. Dare you say that Su Wanning is just a cousin to you? Dare you say you have no romantic feelings for her? Dare you say that Madame Hu raised her as a future daughter-in-law, not for the day when you would rightfully take her as a concubine, or even replace me? Lu Zhengge's face instantly turned deathly pale, his lips trembling, unable to utter a single word. I guessed right. This is what is most disgusting, what I can't stand the most. They never took me, the legal wife, seriously at all. Lu Zhengge. I looked at his devastated appearance, a wave of glee rising in my heart. The game has just begun. I am not only going to make your Lu family go bankrupt, I am also going to make you all ruined and disgraced. What else are you planning to do? He looked at me in terror. I gave a faint smile, leaned close to his ear, and whispered, I am going to let the whole world know how you, the heir of Marquis Amping, and your good cousin, secretly had an affair and conceived during the mourning period. Lu Zhengge, as if struck by lightning, took a sharp step back and looked at me in disbelief. How did you know? How did I know? Su Wanning's personal maid had been bought over by me with a hefty sum long ago. That woman has been pregnant for nearly 2 months. This is the real confidence she had to put on that scene of forcing the emperor to abdicate on my wedding day. What a brilliant move to undermine the foundation. What a brilliant move to get pregnant before marriage. Lu Zheng, I looked at his deathly pale face and gave a smile that could be called malicious. Just you wait. First thing tomorrow morning, the censorate's memorial of impeachment will be sent to the emperor's dragon desk. You tell me, are these 8 words, disregarding human ethics, defiling the household, enough to make your mansion of Marquis Samping be buried along with you? The sky has brightened. Lu Zheng didn't come back all night, I guess. He probably returned to the manor overnight to verify the truth of my words. The outcome went without saying. When the censorate's impeachment memorials really flew like snowflakes toward the Golden Throne Hall, the Amping Marquis Manor completely fell into chaos. The old Marquis was so enraged on the spot that he vomited blood and passed out. The Marquise rushed into Su Wanning's courtyard, and for the first time in her life, she struck the niece she had doted on for over a decade. The sounds of slapping, crying, and cursing could be heard from several streets away. The Amping Marquis Mansion, this once immensely glorious century-old prestigious family in the capital, became the biggest joke and scandal overnight. The heir apparent had an illicit affair with his cousin and secretly conceived a child. Disregarding moral principles, utterly corrupt in conduct, he is a complete disgrace to us scholars. The rumors and gossip spread like a plague, 100 times more vicious and 100 times more deadly than the ones I spread before. This time, I didn't do anything. I just quietly stayed in the manor, listening to the various news Wan Kui brought back from outside, and then brewed a pot of good tea and slowly savored it. In the afternoon, someone came from the palace. It was the head eunuch from the emperor's side. Eunuch Wang. He brought an imperial edict. Me dad led the whole family to kneel and receive the edict. My heart is calmer than ever before. I know, the final judgment has arrived. Eunuch Wang's shrill voice echoed through the hall, each word like a hammer, heavily striking the ground. The content of the imperial edict was beyond everyone's expectations, yet within my calculations, the emperor did not directly order confiscation of property or punishment. He first harshly berated the Amping Marquis Manor for failing to raise their son properly, and Lu Zheng for his lack of virtue, fining the old Marquis 3 years of his stipend, and ordering him to reflect on his misdeeds behind closed doors. Then, his tone shifted. However, in light of the deep and unwavering love between the two, referring to Lu Zheng and Su Wanning, we are greatly pleased. We shall hereby grant their wish, bestowing a marriage upon the heir of Marquis Amping, Lu Zheng, and Lady Su Wanning. The wedding is to be completed immediately, without fail. My dad and my mom were both stunned. What does this mean? To raise it up high, and then set it down gently. Only I, upon hearing these words, couldn't stop the corners of my mouth from curling up. Don't rush, the best part is yet to come. Eunuch Wang cleared his throat and continued to read aloud. However, Lady Su is of humble birth, her virtue unworthy of the position, and can only be a side consort. Furthermore, Lu Zheng's character is unstable and unfit for great responsibility. Strip him of his title as heir apparent, to be inherited by his full younger brother, Lu Zhengxi so decreed. 1 imperial edict, 3 claps of shocking thunder. A bestowed marriage. It is a fulfillment, and also the greatest humiliation, letting this damned couple be bound together, amidst the ridicule of the entire world, as a concubine. Su Wanning tried her best, even ruining her reputation to get pregnant, all for the position of crown princess, the future matriarch of the Marquise's mansion. In the end, she can only be a concubine who must always bow down to the main wife, and her child will also be born of a concubine. Deposed. Lu Zhongguo's greatest reliance was his identity as the crown prince. Now, he is nothing. A deposed former crown prince, married to a concubine of ill repute, holding an empty title. This feels worse than killing him. This imperial decree isn't mercy. It is a soul-crushing blow. It is like nailing them to the pillar of shame, wishing for life, wishing for death, but getting neither. I kowtowed to express my gratitude, my voice crisp. Your subject, Juan, thanks His Majesty for his great kindness. After Eunuch Wang left, my father looked at me, his eyes as complex as a book. Yuan, all of this was within your calculations. I stood up and brushed the dust off my knees. Dad, I looked out the window. The sky was just right. I just gave them what they wanted. Lu Zheng wanted his white moonlight. I gave it to him. Su Wanning wanted to marry into the Marquise's mansion. I gave it to her. I just went with the flow, letting them get what they wished for. From now on, they will spend their lives together in endless regret and mutual resentment. Amping Marquise's mansion. Oh no, it should be called the Lu Mansion now. The wedding at the Lu Manor was held quietly, even a bit shabby. No guests, no music. Like a hasty farce. I heard Lu Zheng had a black face the whole time, and Su Wanning cried from beginning to end. This time, the tears were real. Their wedding night was spent smashing things and cursing each other. Marquis Madame Lu got sick from anger. The newly appointed heir, Lu Zhengxi, moved out of the mansion overnight and into his own separate residence, drawing a line between himself and them. A once prosperous family thus fell apart. These pieces of news, like snowflakes, continuously reached my ears. I listened, occasionally chuckling, my mood completely unfazed. That feeling was like watching someone else's play. Once the play ended, it was over. Another half-month passed. Lu Zheng actually sent someone to give me a letter. When Wang Kui gave it to me, she had a look of disgust on her face. I opened the letter, and there were only a few lines of text. The handwriting was sloppy, and it was obvious that the writer was struggling internally. He said he was wrong. He said he shouldn't have been blinded by greed. He said he finally understood who was truly good to him. He said he regretted it. He asked me, if we could, go back to how things were before. After I finished reading, I expressionlessly brought the letter paper to the candle flame. The flame licked the paper, and soon, those vile words turned into a wisp of smoke and dissipated into the air. Go back to the past. On what grounds? Back then, I was filled with joy. Yet you treated me like a worn-out shoe. Now that you are at the end of your rope, you want to come back and use me as your fallback plan. Lu Zheng, you think way too highly of yourself. I annihilated your family, ruined your future, made you marry the person you love the most, and burdened you with shackles for life. You should thank me for not really taking your life. A month later, another message came from the palace. Her Majesty, the Empress, summoned me to the palace, saying she had several talented young men she wanted to introduce to me. Among them was the Zhenbei king, who was young yet had achieved brilliant military exploits. My mother was so excited she almost fainted, holding my hand, crying and laughing. My child, our bitter days are finally over, and sweetness has come. I looked at myself in the mirror. My face was the same, but my eyes were already different. The innocence had faded, the hardships had settled in, and the sharpness had been hidden. I gently touched my face and whispered, "Yes, everything has just begun. The road ahead is long, and perhaps there will be more storms. But this time, I will live for myself, a sharp sword in my hand, a universe in my heart. If gods stand in my way, I'll kill the gods. If Buddhas stand in my way, I'll kill the Buddhas." My mom said, "My hardship is over, and the good times are coming." But I feel like I've just climbed out of one mud pit, dusted myself off, and am about to step into another, more magnificent and more dangerous hunting ground. The Empress's flower viewing banquet was held in the Imperial Garden. The vibrant spring colors of the entire garden couldn't compare to the brilliant smiles on the faces of these women. They sized me up, both openly and secretly, their gazes filled with sympathy and curiosity, but even more so with scrutiny, scrutinizing a piece of merchandise that had just been given a new price tag. "Ji Yuan, come to my side." The Empress, dressed in a graceful and magnificent phoenix robe, beckoned to me. I moved with light, graceful steps and sat down beside her. She took my hand and patted it, her gaze gentle, but her words were meant for everyone present to hear. This child has suffered a terrible injustice, yet possesses such magnanimity and grace, using her own dowry for disaster relief. She is truly a model for us women of the Great Zhou. With those words, she defined me. I was the victim. I was the great benefactor, and I was of noble character. From now on, if anyone dared to slander me over the broken engagement, they would be making an enemy of the Empress, and an enemy of the virtue championed by the royal family. I lowered my gaze and said softly, "Your Majesty, you flatter me. The nation comes before the family. Jiyuan dares not forget the suffering of the people." Impeccable, a perfect display of poise. The Empress nodded in satisfaction, then immediately changed the subject. "I have invited a few talented young men over today, and I also want you girls to get to know each other when it comes to fate. Who can say for sure?" My heart tightened. I knew the main event was about to begin. Soon, a few young men dressed in official robes or brocade clothes, led by a eunuch, walked into the garden. Every one of them was dashing and distinguished. From a prominent family, the dream of every marriageable noble lady in the capital. But my gaze was firmly fixed on the last man. He wore a black princely robe, his posture as straight and tall as a pine tree. The lines on his face were cold and hard, his eyes like deep pools hiding ice and snow. He just stood there casually, yet an intimidating aura that warned people to stay away washed over me. The Prince of Zhenbei, Xiao Changyi, the man who, at only 24, had already slaughtered his enemies on the northern battlefields, until they were terrified at the mere mention of his name. The Empress smiled and said, "The Prince of Zhenbei has just returned from the border to report on his duties. He is usually so elusive, so you little girls are truly lucky today." Everyone's gazes were focused on Xiao Changyi, filled with adoration and awe, but he seemed not to see anyone, his gaze falling directly upon me. That was not the way a man looks at a woman. There was no wonder, no desire. It was an assessment, a scrutiny, like a master craftsman weighing a piece of material to see if it was sturdy, if it was usable. My heart instantly sank. This banquet was hardly a flower viewing and husband selecting event. It was clearly an unspoken political transaction. Xie Zhuan and the Ministry of Personnel behind me are the most tempting chips in this transaction. I understand now, everything I did before, seemingly to turn the tables for myself and my family, was actually catering to the intentions of those in power. The Emperor and Empress are happy to see the Marquis Amping's estate fall, because they are no longer obedient. They need a new, more loyal, and more capable force to replace them. The King of Zhenbei is a change in military power, and my Xia family, with our wealth and connections in Zhangyan, became the perfect choice to stabilize the home front and supply money and food. A marriage alliance was the strongest chain binding these two forces. I was no longer a cast-off wife. I became a crucial chess piece. Xiao Changyi raised his wine cup to me, toasting me from afar across the garden full of spring scenery. I picked up my wine cup and toasted him back. My fingertips were ice cold, from a fiery pit to an ice cellar. This is my so-called sweetness after bitterness. I thought the Liu family was already a dead dog, at most only able to lie on the ground and gasp for a couple of breaths. I was wrong. I underestimated the final strike of a dying venomous snake. Lu Zhengxi, the second son of Marquis Amping's residence, who took the heir apparent's position from Lu Zhen, is 100 times more sinister and ruthless than his idiot brother. It was my dad who got into trouble. During the morning court session, an old official from the censorate suddenly launched an attack. He presented a memorial to the throne, claiming that my father embezzled a huge amount of tax money when he was in charge of the Zhangyan water transport. Furthermore, the so-called dowry money I donated to the refugee camp was actually the illicit funds my father had transferred out, a flawlessly forged account book, a few witnesses who had been heavily bribed. The spear was pointed directly at my father, at my Shi family, using disaster relief as a pretext for money laundering. This accusation is enough to have my entire Shi family executed. My father was temporarily dismissed from his post on the spot and imprisoned in the Dali temple to await trial. When the news reached our residence, my mother fainted immediately. The entire Shi family was thrown into chaos. I stood amidst the chaos, but my mind was unprecedentedly calm. This is the Lu family's revenge. This is Lu Jiangshi's desperate counterattack. They can't survive themselves, so they want to drag my Shi family down to hell with them. Wan Kui, I shouted sternly. Go, wrap up that blood jade Guanyin statue from the previous dynasty in the storehouse. Prepare the carriage. I am going to the Prince of Zhenbei's mansion. My mother woke up from her faint, grabbed my hand, tears streaming down her aged face. Yuan, are you? What are you going to see him for? We're not begging for help anymore. Mother, I interrupted her, my gaze terrifyingly firm. This is no longer about whether we beg for help, it is that they need us. If the Shi family falls, it will do them no good at all. This is no longer a simple family feud, this is a reshuffling of power in the imperial court. Some people want to use the suppression of my dad to curb the rising new forces. My opponents are no longer just the Lu family, but also those old scheming bastards behind the Lu family, who don't want to see the king of Zhenbei and my Shi family form an alliance. The king of Zhenbei's residence is more modest than I imagined, and also more grim. Xiao Changyi is in his study wiping his personal sword. That sword is said to have drunk the blood of over 1,000 enemies. He was not surprised to see me. You are here. He didn't even look up. Just used a piece of white cloth to wipe the blade over and over again. Your Highness seems to have long expected my arrival, I said, getting straight to the point. A smart woman, when she has no way out, will always choose the most valuable trading partner. His words were like his blade, cold and sharp. I placed the brocade box in my hands on his desk. This is my sincerity. He finally stopped his movements and raised his eyes to look at me. Miss Shi, I am not lacking in antiques. You should know what it is that I want. My father's innocence, the safety of the Shi family. I looked him directly in the eyes without flinching. I can trade myself, and all the Zhangyan properties under my name, for it. He smiled. In that smile, there was no warmth, only appreciation, like admiring a rebellious, untamable prey that has finally been subdued. Good. He stood up and walked in front of me. His figure loomed over me, carrying a thick scent of blood and a sense of oppression. I promise you, however, I am helping you not because of this broken Guanyin statue, nor because of your businesses. Then why? He reached out and gently pinched my chin, forcing me to look up. Because I like your eyes. He leaned close to my ear, his voice low like a devil's whisper, like a wounded she-wolf, clearly terrified to death, yet still thinking about how to bite off the enemy's throat. I like this kind of fierceness. Xiao Changyi agreed to my deal. 3 days later, my dad was released without charges and reinstated to his original post, those so-called witnesses. Overnight, their entire families died a violent death. That bookkeeper, who forged the account books, was found hanged on the back door of the Lu family, and that censor who impeached my dad in the imperial court was found to be colluding with an enemy nation, and his entire family was thrown into the great prison. Fast, ruthless, precise. This is the style of Xiao Changyi, the king of Zhenbei. He used the bloodiest means to clear the obstacles for me, and also declared to the entire capital that the Shi family was under his protection. After this event, the Shi family and the Prince of Zhenbei's mansion were completely bound together. The wedding was quickly scheduled, but I knew things weren't over yet. As long as that venomous snake Lu Jiangxi and that crazy hag from the Lu family were still around, my heart couldn't find a single day of peace. I don't like leaving loose ends. So I sent a letter to Lu Jiangxi. He asked him to meet at the tea house we used to frequent the most. He came. He was even more haggard than the last time we met. The once luxurious brocade robe he wore had been washed until it was a bit pale. He looked at me, his gaze extremely complicated, with hate, with resentment, but even more so, a kind of humble, pitiful hope. Ji-Yuan, you are willing to see me. His voice was trembling. I ignored his tender gaze and simply pushed a stack of things in front of him. These were the copies of all the letters and receipts from Lu Zhenmu's behind-the-scenes operations, bribing officials and fabricating evidence, all intended to frame my father. Of course, this was also a small gift from Xiao Changyi to me. Lu Zhengzhi's face instantly turned as white as paper. What do you want to do? He asked me in terror. I'll give you a choice. I picked up the teacup and gently blew on the steam rising from it. Either you hand over the originals of these things to me, and I'll guarantee your father a peaceful end to his years. You and your good cousin can also keep your miserable lives, get out of the capital, and never be allowed back for eternity. I paused, looked up at him, and smiled. Either I'll hand this stuff directly over to Dali Temple. Murdering an official appointed by the imperial court is a crime that implicates 9 generations of relatives. By then, you, your good brother, your crazy mother, your old dad on his sickbed, and that bastard in Su Wanning's belly, not one of you will escape. You. He shot up, pointing at me, trembling with rage. Zhejuan, what a venomous heart you have. I laughed out loud. No matter how venomous I am I as venomous as your younger brother? Or as venomous as that mother of yours who only wants me dead? Lu Zheng, you are talking to me about hearts now. Don't you find it laughable? I stood up, looking down on him from above. I'll give you 3 days to consider. Go back and tell your younger brother and your mother that since they walked down this dead-end path themselves, they shouldn't blame me for hammering the last nail into their coffins. I turned to leave, when suddenly, someone rushed out from behind the screen in the tea house. It was Su Wanning. Her large belly was already very obvious. She wore a coarse cloth dress, her face sallow, with none of her former pure and lovely demeanor left. She dropped to her knees before me, hugged my leg, and started wailing. Sister Zhuan, I am begging you, please, spare us. We know we were wrong. We really know we were wrong. She cried until she was out of breath, her face a mess of tears and snot. The child is innocent. I am begging you, for the child's sake, spare us. I looked down at this woman who once trampled me underfoot, but was now groveling like a dog, and I felt not a single ripple in my heart, only disgust. So now you know the child is innocent. I kicked her hand away, my voice as cold as ice. Back then, you used this child to force the palace, ruin my marriage, and shame my Xia family. Why didn't you think he was innocent? Now, your man, your mother-in-law, your brother-in-law are all sending my whole family to the guillotine, and you've come to beg me. I squatted down, pinched her chin, looked into her terrified eyes, and said word by word, let me tell you, it is too late. This game, from the day you decided to have me killed, there has been no turning back. Not only do I want you all dead, I want you to die disgraced and infamous for eternity. 3 days. I gave Lu Zhengguo 3 days to put on a good show of brothers, fighting and mother and son turning against each other. These 3 days, I lived a leisurely and carefree life. Every day, I either drank tea or watched my mother happily prepare new dowry for me. She seemed to have completely forgotten the bloody storm of the past few days, her eyes full of my wedding with the Zhenbei king. She said Xiao Changyi was a heroic figure, a true hero, and my good match. I smiled and said nothing. Good match, perhaps. At least, he is a sharp enough knife to help me cut through all thorns. That is enough. At dusk on the 3rd day, Lu Zhengguo sent someone to deliver a box. I opened the box. Inside, a stack of yellowed letters and receipts lay quietly. It was his pledge of allegiance. It was the butcher's knife with which he personally severed the last glimmer of hope for his own family. I can even imagine what kind of hell on earth the Lu residence has been for the past 3 days. How Lu Zhengzhi had a complete falling out with that ambitious younger brother of his. and how he completely broke things off with his mother, who was biased to her very core. In the end, he chose to save his father's and his own worthless life. He chose betrayal. Wang Kui's hands were trembling as she looked at those things. Miss he really, even a cornered dog will leap over a wall, let alone a person. I closed the box, my tone calm. Besides, Lu Zheng has never been one with a strong backbone. The one he loves most has always and only ever been himself. That night, I delivered the box to the residence of the Prince of Zhenbei. After Xiao Changyi finished looking at the contents, a flicker of barely perceptible approval flashed in his eyes. Killing with a borrowed knife, 2 birds with 1 stone. He tossed the letters into the brazier. Not only did you obtain the evidence, you also made them completely crumble from within. Shizhiyuan, you are more ruthless than this prince had imagined. You flatter me, Your Highness, I said lightly. I was merely following the example set for me. The world of officialdom, isn't it just like this? A life or death struggle where every inch of ground is fought for. The firelight reflected on his face, flickering between light and shadow. The wedding date is set for the 8th of next month, he said suddenly. So soon. A long delay invites trouble. He looked at me, his gaze deep. This prince must return to the northern border tomorrow. There is still a hard battle to be fought there. When this prince returns victorious, I will come to marry you. I nodded. Okay, aren't you afraid? He asked. Afraid of what? Afraid that this prince will die on the battlefield. Your Highness is joking. I met his gaze, a slight smile on my lips. If Your Highness were to die, wouldn't all my investments go down the drain? So for my sake, you have to come back alive and well. He was stunned for a moment, then burst into a deep, heartfelt laugh. This was the first time I had ever seen him laugh so heartily. He reached out and pulled me into his arms. This embrace held no lust. It was more like an oath. Zizhuan, he said in my ear, wait for me. When I return, I will give you a truly great gift. Xiao Changyi left. But the capital was once again thrown into turmoil because of the things he left behind. The Lu family was finished, completely and utterly finished. The crimes of assassinating a court official and attempting to subvert the court, once confirmed, were something not even the gods could save them from. On the day the imperial edict was issued, the sky was gloomy. Lu Zhengxi and Marchioness Amping were thrown into the imperial prison to be executed after autumn. All of their family's assets were confiscated and turned over to the state. In consideration of the old marquise's past merits and Lu Zheng's meritorious act of righteously turning in his own family, the emperor showed mercy beyond the law and spared the Lu family from the death penalty. The old marquis was stripped of his title and reduced to a commoner. Overcome with rage, he breathed his last that very night, and Lu Zhengguo was stripped of all his titles and honors and driven out of the capital with his premature and frail wife and child. It was drizzling the day they left. I stood by the tea-house window, watching with my own eyes as the dilapidated carriage slowly drove away on the muddy official road. Lu Zheng sat on the carriage shaft, dressed in plain cloth, his back hunched, like an old man who had aged 20 years in an instant. Su Wanning held the child, huddled in the carriage, not even daring to show her head. This was the ending they got when they sought benevolence, and received benevolence. From then on, the world was vast, and they would, with endless regret and poverty, in some unknown small place, barely cling to life, tormenting each other until death. And I, Shijian, standing at a height they could never reach, watched with cold eyes. Wang Kui said softly behind me, "Miss, it is all over." I shook my head. Number I looked north to where Xiao Changyi was fighting on the battlefield. This is just the beginning. Half a year later, the northern border achieved a great victory. The king of Zhenbei, Xiao Changyi, led his army back in triumph. He was clad in blood-stained armor, riding a tall horse, from the Vermilion Bird Gate all the way to the imperial palace, receiving the cheers and worship of all the people. On that day, the capital was deserted. I was also in the crowd, watching him from afar. As if he sensed something, his gaze pierced through the surging crowd and landed precisely on me. He showed me a victor's smile. I saw, in the procession behind him, a prisoner's cart. In the cart, a man with disheveled hair and a gaunt face was locked up. That was the captured Chanyu of the enemy nation. I instantly understood what Xiao Changyi meant by the great gift. He was sending me. On the wedding day, the auspicious time arrived. This time, there were no accidents, no complications. The 10-li red dowry procession stretched from the Xia family residence all the way to the Prince of Zhenbei's mansion. All the citizens of the capital came out to watch this magnificent wedding. I wore the wedding dress bestowed by the Empress, a phoenix crown on my head, sitting in my boudoir. This time, my heart was as calm as still water. The wedding procession arrived on time. Xiao Changyi personally kicked open the sedan door and held out his hand to me. He had changed out of his armor and was wearing a bright red wedding robe, looking imposingly heroic. "I've come to marry you," his voice, as deep as ever, carried a trace of tenderness I had never heard before. I placed my hand in his palm. His hand was large and warm, covered with thick calluses from years of wielding a blade, having kowtowed to heaven and earth and to our parents. We were sent into the bridal chamber. Red candles burned brightly, the room filled with auspicious joy. He lifted my bridal veil and looked at me under the candlelight, his eyes as deep as the sea. "You look beautiful," he said. I smiled. "Your Highness, I am afraid that is not all you want to say." He nodded, and from his bosom he took out an item. "It is a seal, phoenix-shaped, made of pure gold." "What is this?" I asked. I won a great victory this time, and the Emperor was overjoyed. He asked me what reward I wanted. I asked him for one thing. He thrust that phoenix seal into my hand. "Personally bestowed by the Emperor, a rank above the first, the Lady Protector of the nation. When you meet an official, you are one rank higher. You can mobilize my 3,000 personal guards. You can report directly to the Emperor, and you can supervise all the officials." I held that heavy phoenix seal, my palm growing hot. This was no longer just some honor and favor. This was overwhelming power, Your Highness. I looked at him and asked, word by word, "What do you really want?" He smiled, reached out to stroke my face, his gaze burning. "I told you, I like your vicious streak. This capital is a pool of murky water. The inner palace, even more so, is a man-eating place. I am away all year round and cannot fully protect you. So, I don't want you to be a delicate flower that needs protection." He looked at me, the ambition and possessiveness in his eyes no longer concealed. "Zhiyuan, I want you to be the sharpest sword in this world, to be the phoenix who stands by my side. I want it so that no one in this world dares to bully you or humiliate you again. I want you to stand by my side, to watch with me this vast land, this everlasting dominion." The flame of the red candle flickered gently. I looked at the man before me, this man who had laid both power and love before me, in the most domineering way. I smiled. So after going in such a big circle, ruining a marriage, destroying a family, and fighting a court official, what I ultimately got was not a husband, but a co-conspirator. A co-conspirator who could rule the world with me. I took the initiative to move closer and kissed his lips. So be it. Love may be illusory, but power will never deceive. This phoenix crown, I will wear it. This world, I will take it.